retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton. He's the former Assistant Vice Chief of Staff for the U.S. Air Force. Thank you for joining us live on Prime, sir.
Good evening, Paul. Good to be with you.
My first question is just a simple one. How much of this is bark and how much of this is bite from China?
Well, there's a little bit of both. But let me first say that I think the greatest strategic threat we have right now facing the United States for now and what I would call the foreseeable future is China, a rising China, if you will. What we're seeing play out right now on the heels of Speaker Pelosi's visit, and by the way, she's now in Japan, having just visited in South Korea, it's significant. And the fact that they're raising the level of the rhetoric, what I would call the strategic communication, to try to influence not only perhaps their own domestic audience, but also the region as well, especially our allies in Japan and South Korea. So it is significant. It's significant, as Kelly reported, those missile test fire launches and other live fires that they've demonstrated over the past several days. But it bears close watching. But I believe that really China is going to play the long game here. But they're taking full advantage and certainly very upset over Speaker Pelosi's visit.
You say the long game. How long are we talking about? How long can they keep this up?
Well, a very influential colleague of mine reminded me that China is really all about patience. We think in terms of weeks and months and a year or two. China thinks in terms of decades. And so the last thing President Xi wants to do is back into a major conflict, especially as he faces the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party, which will then hold elections for him to likely become a third term for him. But I believe we're looking in terms of years or tens of years. There's a document that China published recently that says they want to become the superpower and take place of the United States in the year 2049. So they're thinking in terms of that. That's what I'm referring to, Paul, in terms of the long ball here.
You know, I'm worried by the tone some are taking with this. Pelosi herself seemed a little dismissive, that maybe China's angry, as if they're throwing a temper tantrum. Where's the line, though? What would China really have to do to ignite international tensions on another level that would be escalatory?
Well, first off, Speaker Pelosi has been a long watcher of China, and so she's been engaged with China for a number of years. And if we recall, the last Speaker of the House visit was actually Newt Gingrich in 1997. But my point here, however, is that, again, the United States has a long-standing national security policy in terms of recognizing under the Taiwan Act in 1979 of one China. In other words, to let Taiwan make its decision whether it wants to, remain independent or perhaps reunite with mainland China, which they don't do and no one would expect it to do. But there are some significant threats here that, again, China, Paul, to really address your question, they've been modernizing their military capability like I've never seen in my 34 years of active duty and 10 years hence in terms of their ships, their aircraft, and really what is very concerning to me is the strategic modernization of their intercontinental ballistic missiles and the ability to really, threaten not only the region, but perhaps the United States in several years from now. But they're marching towards being able to do that with their intercontinental ballistic missiles. So the level of escalation, again, I don't believe, again, like I mentioned earlier, that President Xi wants to really back into a major conflict. But I am concerned about anything happening that very narrow 100 miles in those Taiwan Straits, as Kelly referred to. That is a very dangerous place to operate and certainly have any type of battle. And so that's where you have a trigger-happy local commander. You've got a misstep or miscommunication. We mentioned the Abraham Lincoln group is there conducting exercises and so forth. So I don't believe we're really near an escalation point where we're going to have conflict, but we are at the highest tension I've seen in a long time. And I think we're going to remain there for the next several weeks.
When we talk about sanctions and we talk about closed diplomatic channels, what are the long-term and the short-term ramifications of those things?
Well, the short-term ramifications, there are two that Kelly mentioned. That there's one that deals with climate change. There was an agreement made in 2015 between the Obama administration and President Xi regarding dialogue over climate. And by the way, it's not the topic of climate that's important. It's the idea that we have actual diplomatic discussions on a topic such as climate. The other one is that they've shut off communications between our military to military channels. That's somewhat significant because that's where you want to maintain those open communications so we don't have one of those situations where you've got a miscommunication or what would be thought of as a trigger-happy commander on the mainland China side and so forth. But what we're really going to be focusing on over the next several weeks is what's going to be the outcome of this. When are those open channels now, or those closed channels now opened again? And that will be bear watching. And so my hope is, and hope is not a strategy, by the way, but the hope is that they're open back again after China, tamps down their rhetoric and so forth, and opens back that open channel communication, which will lead to more typical and historical diplomatic approaches to how we conduct business between the two nations.
We're short on time, but I'd like to squeeze one more in if we can. In your professional opinion, where do you think our relations with China go from here?
Right now, our relations are again in a very bad position. The only way is to go up and to improve, but that's less on the United States side. It's going to be more on the Chinese side. Again, to go back to that point, they're in this for the long haul. They're in this in terms of thinking in terms of years and decades. And so I'll close on this point. I believe, however, it's very important for the United States to show American resolve here, not only against China, our main strategic threat for the next several years, but also to our friends and allies, Taiwan being a friend, but also our allies in Japan and South Korea. It's very important we show this American resolve and we not back off of our toe-to-toe position that we're seeing play out right now.
You've been listening to retired Lieutenant General Richard Newton. Thank you for joining the show tonight, sir. And thank you for your service.
Paul.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.